Well, you can make the case that here we are early January, and this is critical time for the Toronto Raptors, but not just for their playoff aspirations, but maybe for the future of this club. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a make it or break it 2 week period. It goes right into the trade deadline. If they lose four of them or even three of them and drop further in the Eastern Conference, I can see them trading off guys at the February 9th trade deadline to get young kids and picks. So yeah, this is it's a put up or shut up time for the players.
The story has been that there are many teams sitting around waiting for the Toronto Raptors to decide what they're going to do. Do you subscribe to that theory?
Yeah, a bunch of executives I talked to are just sort of waiting to see. The Raptors have a lot of different level players they could move anyone from Fred VanVleet, Siakam, Gary Trent Jr., Anunoby. They got a lot of pieces, and until they decide which way they're going to go and who they're going to put out there, I think the rest of the league just sort of wait and sit around. And there's still a month or 5 weeks to go till the deadline, so there's not a huge sense of urgency, but the rest of the teams want to see where Toronto goes first.
Hold on, you said Van Vliet's on that list?
Oh, I think so. He's going into perhaps a contract year. He's got an opt out in the summer. I think if this thing keeps going south, everybody's in play because it's obviously not working. And
Barnes and Siakam too.
I don't know about Barnes, although I would put him out there. Siakam is another guy you're going to have to pay a lot of money to. I would personally keep him because I think he is one of the top 15 players in the NBA, and I think you need to keep something here. But Masai will do whatever he has to do, and he's shown it in the past, and he can be relatively ruthless when it comes to making player moves.
So he's obviously there are going to be some players involved, but you think this is really a draft choice kind of decision?
I think they'd like to, if they're going to go that route, and I don't know that they will. I still think they think that they're good enough to get in the mix and make some noise and develop in the playoffs as opposed to developing in the summer. But I do think if they can't get to the bottom four. I think the bottom four are so bad, no matter what the Raptors do, they can't get that bad. But if you can get to where you're picking 6 to 8, then I think you got a lottery shot you might want to investigate. But again, I don't know that they're going to do that, but it's certainly on their ID. It's in their minds because it's a possibility.
But hey, Doug, I watched the Indy game, and here we're watching the Indiana Pacers, and the Raptors were supposed to be better than the Indiana Pacers when the season started, and now it's the reverse. Now it's the Raptors are the also-rans, and the Pacers are playing better. What sense of frustration do you get from not the players, because players will always be frustrated, from the front office?
Well, every time early in the year, and even in the training camp, we talked with Bobby and Masai, and the word was they didn't know what they had. They wanted to find out. Well, they thought they would find out good. Well, maybe sometimes you find out bad, and that's when you got to reverse course or change course in the middle of the year. They didn't know exactly what they had going into the year. They thought they would be far better than they are right now, 15-22, but they're not. So guess what? Sometimes the things you find out aren't necessarily good.
We talk a lot. People talk a lot about their bench. Do you think the real weakness in this team is the fact that they can't get guys to come off the bench and perform well, or is that just part of the problem?
That's part of the problem. I think the major problem is they just don't guard people. They don't defend well enough. And if you defend well enough, then you can sort of hide offensive limitations, which the bench is. The bench is not, it doesn't score a lot. And it was never going to score a lot. We said it when the three of us talked in September, that was an issue. That the bench scoring was going to be a thing, which is why I think and still think that that's where Gary Trent helps his team, coming off the bench and scoring with a second unit. But they're so desperate to win that they got to use them with the other top four scorers to give them a chance each night.
But so let's be honest, the guy has and Siakam are the two guys that really have performed consistently.
100%. And Trent has done a great job. He got hurt. He was a little bit sick, a little bit banged up. Coming back, he's shown he can do it either as a starter or as a backup.
Yeah.
And I think you might need him. I think you need him with a second group. But that's, again, they decided they want to throw all their eggs in their starting basket. And we saw in Indy, that's some nights an abysmal failure.
Well, but if you put him in the second group, mean, somebody's going to have to be elevated to that starting rotation, and they don't have anybody right now.
I think Achua is the guy. I've always thought that. I think he is the starting center on this team. I think you start Van Vliet, Barnes, Anunoby, Siakam, and Achua. And he missed 7 weeks, and that's obviously a reason for it.
Right.
But I think pretty soon you're going to see that's where they're going to go, because it gives him a little bit more balance. He doesn't need the ball to score. He's not going to, Gary's going to get you 35 a night, but he's going to take 20 shots. Achua's not going to take 20 shots because he doesn't do that. And I think that balances out the groups a little bit better. But again, he missed 24 games, more than a quarter of the season. So that hung them up a little bit.
But do you think Achua is good enough at the post?
I think he's a good enough back end defender. Yeah, he's certainly not Miles Turner or Sabonis or that level of a shot blocking presence, but he is a legit 6'11", long wing, long armed, active defender. I think he could help them, and he's far more offensively capable and fits better, I think, than Koloko, the rookie, who might be that in 3 years. Force feeding him time this year was done by necessity, but didn't do the kid any favors because he's getting scorched some nights.
How much of this do you think is due to all the injuries this team has had since September?
It's been disruptive, but every in the league has been through disruption. Like I think basically every team in the league has lost key players for substantial amounts of time. Look at Miami's had Butler in and out, Lowry in and out, Adebayo in and out, and they're 4 games better than the Raptors.
Yeah,
Indiana's had guys hurt. Like everybody has. So it's a part of it, but it's certainly not solely a thing that the Raptors have had to deal with. Everybody in the league's dealt with it better than Toronto has.
So what do you think the Raptors need? What do you think the Raptors need to do? Is the problem they only have one point guard effectively, who they're happy with? That's Van Vliet. Do they need a big guy? What are their needs?
I think their needs are, and this has been consistent since November. They need shooting. Whether that's a 6'10" guy who can shoot and stretch the floor, or whether that's a backup point guard who can shoot, they need someone who can score the ball, because that's the problem. If they score, they get their defense set. If they miss shots, they're defending in transition, and they're not quick enough to do that.
Well, Porter was supposed to be that a guy who would help them in that, and he has played virtually not at all.
Yeah, and it
sounds like he's not going to play imminently, is he?
Yeah, there's no indication when he will play. We asked Nick yesterday, and is he coming along? He's not. So we don't know when that's going to be. It's a dislocated toe. I don't know how. Obviously, it's serious, but we don't know. We can't count on him at all.